Hi, this is Yutaka Takamine. This is the first lecture of this training course titled International Trends on Disability Issues. And I like to use the PowerPoint, my PowerPoint. And the scenery, my screen, background screen is Okinawan, beautiful Okinawan beach. I hope you can enjoy it. Then before I start this subject, I'd like to introduce myself. I was born in 1948 in Okinawa, Japan, and I'm 72 years old. And I became disabled, become paraplegic due to gymnastic accident at school when I was 17 years old. And after the accident, I had a very much difficulties, but I was able to go to Hawaii, the United States, to study in 1974 when I was 24 years old. So I studied social work and public affairs at the master's degree. And also I worked at Hawaii Centers for Independent Living for 4 years, which is the first independent center in Hawaii. And 1985, I went back to Japan, and then I started working at the Yokohama Rehabilitation Center as a counselor. And also I was engaged in disability organizations called Disabled Peoples International Japan. And I was served as the president for 2 years. And during Japan, I was asked to go to Bangkok, Thailand, to work for United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific as a project expert in social development division. So I worked there for 13 years, and I visited many Asian Pacific countries during my term. And I was back to Japan 2003 to work as a professor at the University of Ryukyu until 2013. So I served as 11 years as a professor at the university to teach social work. And also I started a nonprofit organization called Empowerment Okinawa and take up a contract with JICA to provide this training program for the last 12 years. Now my lecture outline is like this. Okay, I'll take breaks, 2 breaks during the lecture. I would like to start with the definition because we like to have a common understanding of these 2 important words, which is inclusion and social participation. As you see, our title includes two words. And so these 2 words are key words throughout this training course. Let's start with the definition, inclusion. There are 2 diagrams, as you can see, and this diagram is provided by UNESCO and about the inclusive education. So we consider it as inclusive education in the inclusive society. And let's look at the right side. It's this diagram shows there's a wood board with holes, 5 holes with round holes. holes. And there's a tips. You can see wooden tips has been shaped, the rectangular shape has to be shaped into the round so that it can fit into the round hole. And so this is considered as non-inclusive society. Okay, so let's look at the left-hand side. They have also diagram shows there was a wood board with different shape of holes, and each hole has a different shape of wooden chips stay. And what's the difference between two diagrams? So this hand side, there's board, each chip doesn't have to change itself. It keeps its shapes and fit into the board perfectly. That means the board is flexible enough to accommodate each wooden chips. And so this is considered inclusive society. Individual needs to be changed, but society is flexible to change its system to accommodate individuals. And right-hand side is non-inclusive society, which force each individual to change into certain shape, which is round. And so society will not change, not flexible, but individual has to be changed, forced to change. So this is not inclusive society. So this is, do you agree with this definition of inclusion? And so I'd like to have agreement with you, okay? Then next word is social participation. This is a phrase coming from the World Program Action concerning disabled persons, which was adopted by UN in 1982. And it was mentioned about equalization opportunities, but it's mentioned about fundamental elements of living of the community. So it says family, it's many elements, including family life, education, employment, housing, financial and personal security, participation in society, social and political groups, religious activity, intimate and sexual relationship, access to public facilities, freedom of movement, and general style of daily living. So do you think anything missing in this list? So UN said this is the elements of living in the community. And that means these are people should participate in all elements of these elements in the community activities. But in this training course, we cannot have enough time to go through all the elements of this one. So we are focusing on 4 elements, which is employment, and also accessibility, which means access to public facilities and freedom movement. And we have right of person with disabilities, as well as independent living, which is general style of daily living. So this, you can experience those 4 elements during this training course. Now, I would like to discuss about the United Nations activities in the field of disabilities, because I worked for UN for 13 years, and UN is the very important international organization which take on disability issues from early on. In 1970s, the UN started taking on disability issues quite seriously because it's proclaimed the Declaration on the Rights of the Mentally Retarded in 1971. And before 90s, UN activities in the field of disability is focusing on medical treatment and rehabilitation. But in the 70s, they shifted into right of the person with disabilities. And then in 1975, the UN declaration on the rights of disabled persons, which covers all disabled people, not only mentally retarded or intellectually disabled persons. And in 1981, it's declared the International Year of Disabled Person. And all governments in the region and the UN region has been celebrated this year. And during this year, World Program Action concerning disabled people was developed and adopted in 1982, and which is the very important documents of the UN, and it covers comprehensively covers all areas concerning disabled people. And I'm sure you can look at this one. And in order to implement this World Program Action, UN declared the Decade of Disabled Person from 1983 to 1992. And after the decade, the standard rules on the equalization of opportunities of persons with disabilities in 1993 was adopted. It is purely focusing on equalization opportunities. As you may see, the UN World Program Action focuses on 3 areas. One is prevention of disability and rehabilitation for the people with disabilities. And then third area is equalization opportunities in the community. But during decade, many prevention and rehabilitation has been progress, but equalization opportunity has not been improved much. So that the standard rules was adopted. And then standard rules is the former precursor of the Convention on the Rights of Disabled Persons, they say. Okay. And after the decade, Asia and Pacific Decade of Disabled Persons was proclaimed from 1993 to 2000. And then this decade was extended from 2003 to 2012. And the third decade is 2013 to 2020. So in Asia Pacific region, we're still in the decade of disabled person. And now, as you know, UN Assembly adopted Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. And now ratified countries has to submit a report to the UN committees on Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. Okay, so this is the major activities in UN, and I want to focus on the Asia Pacific region. And Economic Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific is the largest region in the United Nations, and it covers about 60% of the world population because China and India is in this Asia Pacific region. And the primary mission of this region is promotion of regional cooperation in economic and social areas. And then This is the map of ESCAP. Covers Eurasia and Pacific Island. Covers 62 countries. And the ESCAP adopted after the end of the UN decade, Asia Pacific Decade was proclaimed. With the initiative of Disabled Persons Organization, DPOs, and civil society organizations. And because many UN decade was ended at 10 years. But Asian Pacific region, many disabled people organization felt that in Asia Pacific region, because there are so many developed countries, which has not taken serious action during the UN decade. So they felt they need to extend this effort another 10 years. And then many government has agreed to proclaim this decade in the ESCAP region. And in order to implement this Asian Pacific decade, the agenda for action was adopted. And let's look at this vision agenda. There's a 12 concerned areas. One, national coordination, legislation, information, public awareness, accessibility and communication, education, training and employment, prevention of causes of disability, rehabilitation, assisted devices, self-help organization, and regional cooperation. So many items you can see is coming from the World Program Action, but with some self-help organization and regional cooperation is new focus. And during the decade, the ESCAP organized the regional intergovernment meetings every 2 years. And they invited governments as well as NGOs and DPOs to discuss about the progress of the decade activities. And during the decade, I think accessibility has been improved, and also some legislation. Government has issued acts on disability and so forth, and also self-help organization or disabled people's organization become strengthened. They become more vocal during the decade. However, at the end of the decade, the many civil organizations felt that the decade was still has unsolved issues, such as it's not really addressed the disabled people in rural areas of the developing countries, and education for the disabled children is still low. And poverty issue has been, prevalent in rural disabled peoples. So the government wished to extend this decade to another decade. And in order to implement this decade, the BIWACO Millennium Framework for Action towards an inclusive, barrier-free, and rights-based society was adopted by the high-level intergovernmental meeting at Otsushima, Japan, in October 2002. And so let's look at this. And there's a 7 priority areas for action for the second decade. And important area is highlight area is the one on the center is self-help organization of persons with disabilities and related family and parent association, and also women with disabilities. So these are focal areas. We like to focus to strengthen the activities of self-organization of persons with disabilities, because they are the one to be empowered in order to carry on many activities. And women with disabilities is because women with disabilities has doubly discriminated as a woman and as a disabled persons. So we would like to focus on this area. And then another 2 area was added is access to information and communications, including information and communication technologies, ICT, because during this period, the internet has been introduced in this region. And so we want to assure that disabled people should have equal access to internet. So that this item was included. And also another added item is poverty alleviation through capacity building, social security, and sustainable livelihood programs. Because we don't focus on poverty issue in the first decade, but we know that the disabled people is the poorest among the poor. So the poverty alleviation program should include persons with disabilities and develop their skills to overcome poverty. So those 2 areas has been added in this Biako Millennium Framework Action. So this millennium, I was in charge of this training, the Millennium Development, because I was the one who was involved in this primary worker as in this Biwako Millennium Framework of Action. So after I, organized this convention, I retired from ESCAP. And now, after the second decade, then government also wished to have third decade. In the high-level intergovernment meeting in Incheon, Republic of Korea, in November 2012, they adopted the Incheon strategy to make the rights real for people with disabilities in Asia and the Pacific. So this is to follow up the many governments to ratify the convention and to strengthen the adoption of the convention in Asia and the Pacific. And this Incheon strategy has 10 goals and 27 targets and 62 indicators. And I don't go into the detail, but I want to emphasize one goal, which is goal 7, ensure disability inclusive disaster risk reduction and management. As you can understand, Japan was hit by the earthquake and the tsunami, tidal waves afterwards. And we lost many lives, which include disabled people as well as older people. It says that half of the victims are disabled people and older people. And so the government is very concerned about how to prevent those, disease incidents. So this area is very, very important now. Okay, so the Asia Pacific region is still ongoing in the process of decade activities. And so by influencing by this, our decade, many other region has interested, taken action, such as Africa Decade of Disabled Person was declared 2000 to 2009. And also it was, I hear, extended to 2010 to 2019. And in the Arab region, Arab Decade of Disabled People was declared from 2003 to 2012. And in Latin America, South America, Americans for Rights and Dignity of Persons with Disabilities was declared from 2006 and to 2016. And I didn't follow up the other decades, but I'm sure that some of you participants have know about this decade activities. So if you have, please give me some ideas what's going on in your region. Okay, so let's have breaks here, maybe 10 minutes, and then we can come back to this next item. Okay, let's start the second session. We can start from the definition of disability. And as you know, WHO was the main agency which carried on this task. And WHO introduced the International Classification on Impairment, Disability, and Handicap, ICIDH, in 1980s. So this is the first international definition introduced. And the significance is, so three different dimensions that has included in this definition: impairment, and the disability, and handicap. And in particularly, the handicap is the relationship between this impairment, disability, and the social environment. And so we may call it social handicap. Disabled people has handicap because of the impairment and disability in social activities. So inclusion of the handicap is the significant part. But this was modified, amended in 2000. And the WHO issued International Classification on Functioning, Disability, and Health. Its short form is ICF. So ICF is include major 5 elements: health condition, and body functions and structure, activity and participation, And also external factors, as include environmental factors. So this definition is much more detailed, and as the environmental factors is considered quite important, other than impairment and disability and and so forth. And by introducing this structure, ICF also includes two types of model, which is medical model and social model. And so ICF include two models. It's combination of medical and social model. And they define the medical model as this. Medical model views disability as a feature of the person directly caused by disease, trauma, or other health condition, which requires medical care provided in the form of individual treatment by professionals. Disability on this model calls for medical or other treatment or intervention to correct the problem of individual. So in this view, the focus is individual. The problem lies on individual persons. So that person has to be corrected in order to participate in society. Okay, on the other hand, the social model of disabilities sees disability as a socially created problem. It's not at all an attribute of an individual. On the social model, disability demands a political response since the problem is created by an unaccommodating physical environment brought about by attitudes and other features of the social environment. So this model is focused on social participation. And the disabled people are not participating or excluded from participation because of so many barriers created in society. So problem is not individual, but society itself. So society needs to be changed in order to accept disabled people. And so social model was advocated by these people's movement, and otherwise, and medical model is kind of a traditional view on disability. So you can see, and the barriers in society has four types. They considered. One is physical barrier, like steps, step on buses, and narrow doors, and no elevator, and so forth. And information barriers, those who has blind people, visually impaired people cannot see, so they need a braille. And hearing impaired people cannot hear the voice, so they need interpreters and so forth. And then institution barrier is some clauses of the law or has not include disabled people to participate in sometimes voting and taking a driver's license and so forth. And then lastly is attitudinal barriers, which is basically ignorance or prejudice or discrimination toward person with disabilities. And so those barriers in society, but without, if there's a barriers in society, disabled people cannot participate in society, social activities freely. So those barriers need to be broken down. But this is these are people is trying, but the society has to be responsible to break down all barriers. Okay, so it looks like social model it represent can see the inclusive society, and inclusive society is society need to change in order to accommodate disabled people's needs. So social model it was kind of related to inclusive society, as you can see. And now we would like to cover on the rights of people with this convention on the rights of people with disabilities. And the convention was adopted by General Assembly in 2002. And many disabled people were groups participated in formulation of the draft convention, And at that time, these people proclaimed there's nothing about us without us. So everything concerning these people should be discussed and participated by people with disabled people. We should decide our destiny and so forth. And as you can see, this convention is based on the social model of disabled people because it describes the discrimination against people with disabilities. And so Article 2 of the convention defines that what is a discrimination on the basis of disabilities. And it includes new elements. It says includes all forms of discrimination, including denial of reasonable accommodation. So this is a new concept has been included as part of discrimination. And then reasonable accommodation was defined, necessary and appropriate modification and adjustment, not imposing disproportional or urban undue burden. And for disabled people to participate in society with equally on an equal basis with others can request some modification, such as if there's a steps, you have to request the ramps or elevators, or whatever. So without providing those accommodation, it constitutes discrimination toward people with disabilities. So this is a new idea. This reasonable accommodation was actually created, adopted in United States in 1970s. And that was this concept was finally adopted internationally in the convention. And so there are many articles within the convention, maybe 32 or so. So just look at the one or two articles. One is Article 19, is living independently and being included in the community. So it's article about the independent living. So disabled people has a right to live in the community with choices equal to others. So disabled people has a right to choose whatever they want to live. They shouldn't be forced into the institutional care. So they want to stay, if they want to decide in community, they should get enough social services to live in the community. And Article 1229 is work and employment. So this is the part that disabled people has the right to work. And they can choose, freely choose or accept it in a labor market and work environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible to people with disabilities. So the right to work is another important area that has been adopted in the convention. And in the area of education and in the area of work, there are many mention about reasonable accommodation. So those education part in the work, you can ask for reasonable accommodation to change the curriculum, to change the environment, so that you can work as equal as others. And now many countries has already ratified conventions. As of November 2017, 175 countries has already ratified. So by now, almost all countries has ratified the convention. And how about your countries? I'm sure your country has already implemented ratified the convention. And so, and after the convention, ratification, then you have to report to the UN Committee on Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities within, I think, after 2 years after the convention. And Japanese government has already submitted their reports, government reports. And we're preparing the parallel report from the non-governmental organizations. Okay, and now let's take another break before another topic. Ten minutes break. Okay, let's start the third session. And let me see. Okay, so community-based rehabilitation we'd like to discuss in this session. The CBR was proposed and it's part of the principle of Alma Ata Declaration in 1978, which was organized by the WHO. So this Alma Ata principle include the primary health care strategy. As you can see, primary health care is the health care mostly for developing countries. And at that time, many people has no access, even in the rural area, has no access to medical care. So they created this primary health care system, focusing on good nutrition and water, drinkable water, and good health. So more preventive part of the health has been emphasized. And they were focusing on community workers, health workers, development of community health workers and so forth. So in the same direction, the WHO has suggested the community-based rehabilitation available, volunteers available in the community, each community, so that the people in the rural area don't need to go to the urban city to have rehabilitation services. So this is the concept that we introduced, and the WHO has training manual developed for CBR in 1970s. And now the concept CBR program is practiced in many countries, which says more than 90 countries, as you can indicate it on this map. Many developed countries has not included, but many developing countries accepted adopting this concept, as you can see. And in 2004, ILO, UNESCO, and WHO has joined paper on CBR. And now CBR is not only rehabilitation, but also it includes education part and the UNESCO, and work, employment, and the ILO. So the CBR is now focused on equalization opportunities, and as well as poverty reduction and inclusion. And now CBR becomes a multi-sector strategy. That means not only rehabilitation, but also educational and as well as employment workplace. And now also WHO has started to create CBR guidelines. And so they have a meeting, including those CBR pioneers, those 3 persons who developed this original CBR training manuals. And also resource persons represent from UN organizations, governments, and NGOs, disabled organizations, and professional organizations. And so at this moment, the CBR framework for the become more inclusive development. And those people were involved in developing CBR guidelines. These are my friend, Venkatesh from India, who is total blind, but he's very active. And Venus Iligan is from DP, Regional Rehabilitation International. She's also a wheelchair user, and many others from involved in this developing that CBR guidelines. And finally, the guideline was published in 2010. And now the CBR guidelines is focused on toward community-based inclusive development, not only rehabilitation, but also developing many, many areas. And the booklet is about 7 booklets in different, in each sessions. And this CBR guidelines introduce CBR metrics. And this is very significant. And then there's a 5 domain mentioned: health, including health, education, livelihood, social activities areas, and empowerment. On each domains, there was 5 elements. Let's say health is a prevention, promotion, prevention, and medical care, and rehabilitation, and assistive devices. and so forth. And each has a 5 elements. You can see it. Okay, and then see social. Social is a relationship, manage, and marriage and family, and personal assistance, and culture and arts, and recreation, leisure, and sports, and access to justice. These are social elements. And then empowerment includes the communication, social mobilization, and political participation, self-help groups, and disabled people's organizations, and to provide empowerment to the people with the disabilities. And so this CBR metrics, the aim is assist in poverty reduction, and as well as empower to affirm human rights of people with disabilities, and promote quality of life and well-being of people with disabilities and their families. And this matrix facilitate inclusive development for people with disabilities and their families. And so there's a 5 domain components, domains, and then there's a detailed elements in each in domain. And so because it covers many areas, so it's not possible for one organization to cover all the components. So it's very important to develop alliance partnership with the stakeholders and with different other elements and so forth. So that's why the CBR matrix is developed to coordinate all these different elements and so forth. And please look up this actual CBR guidelines. It's very detailed and many activities and recommendations in each domains. And then look at the CBR and CRPD, Convention for the Disabled People. And so there are very strong tie between CBR and CRPD. And because CBR is a multi-sectoral bottom-up strategy, which can ensure that the convention makes a difference at the community level. And okay, at the community level, CBR is the arm of the convention. While the convention provides the philosophy and policy, CBR is a practical strategy for implementation. And as you can see, convention provides, policy direction and so forth. It doesn't say how to do it. So CBR is sort of strategy, how to implement this CBR in each local community. And CBR activities are designed to meet basic needs of people with disabilities, reduce poverty, enable access to health, education, livelihood, and social opportunities. So all these activities fulfill the aims of the convention. It's all mentioned in convention. So the convention provided directions and philosophy, and CBR provide the actual strategy to implement CBR. So that's a very strong relation between CBR and CPD. And CBR has there's a CBR global network, and those many membership covers all those many networks. Africa, Americans, this is Latin America, Asia Pacific, and International Disability Allowance, Disabled Peoples International, and World Health and ASEP Development Center, and so forth. So they have, every 4 years, they have a World Congress. And then every 2 years, they have a regional conference in various countries. And I'm sure you're interested in those activities. And the last topic I want to discuss is Sustainable Development Goals. And by now, everybody knows about this goals. And this is United Nations celebrates 70th anniversary and has and decided on new global sustainable development goals. And it's followed by the Millennium Development Goals, as you understand. The development goals is started from 19 and ended 2015. So following this Millennium Development Goals, the UN has declared this Sustainable Development Goals. So this target year is 2030. And they have 17 sustainable development goals with 169 associated targets. And so it's not only developed countries or developed countries has been involved. The goal is to ensure that human rights and fundamental freedom are enjoyed without discrimination, groups on race, ethnicity, and disability. So they finally include disability as a target group. And the motto of the SDG is nobody left behind. That means they should also, disability should be targeted. Nobody left behind is the motto of this SDG. And the 17 goals, mostly I think 1 to 5 are applicable to the people. And one is no poverty, 0 hungry, 2. 3 is good health and well-beings. And 4, quality education. And 5, gender equality. And then maybe 8 is decent work and economic growth. And 10 is reduce inequalities. So I think those areas, these are people are more engaged in this area. So as a conclusion, I want to mention, since 1970, disability has been developed based on the rights of people with disabilities, which has finally accumulated by the passage of CRPD in 2006. And now many government has already ratified the convention. So the next step is domestication or harmonization of CRPD into government laws and policies. So without those, activities, domestication, harmonization, and into the government laws and policies, and nothing will happen. So I'm sure you have already taken action into how to use this CRPD into your own countries in your own hand. And that means you have to influence the government to change their laws and policies according to the CRPD convention. And then the last part is CRPD and CBR guidelines should lead to the promotion or social participation, a person with disabilities. Has mentioned that importance of CBR as a strategy to implement CBR convention in local community. Okay, so this is my conclude my presentation lecture, and I included the questions. So please write to me in email responding to the four questions. And I'm looking forward to it, and I will respond to you by email. Thank you very much.